Aphrodite Rose Starfire. Welcome to my channel. I am discombobulated. Let's see. Sorry guys, let me get situated here. I am in the library parking lot, and there we go. So I have this book, The Lore of the Unicorn. I'm going to read a little bit from this book before I have to return it in the library. Let me see if I can. What's up, Theo? Theo JT98 Unicron. Cool. So, I'm just going to read a little bit, but, I have to find the right spot. Uno momento, por favor. Sorry, I'm trying to find the right spot. The lore of the unicorn is enormous in range and variety, not only because of the great expanse of time it covers, but because it involves so many different departments of knowledge, and the literature dealing specifically with the topic is surprisingly extensive. Like most of my predecessors, I have hunted the unicorn chiefly in libraries, realizing the delightful absurdity of the task quite as fully as one could point it out to me. A zoologist would have written on a topic a different and probably a shorter book, but for me the unicorn is interesting almost entirely as a denizen of the monarch's thought dominions. Whether there is or is not an actual unicorn, and this is one of the questions upon which I shall merely quote the opinions of others, he cannot possibly be so fascinating or so important as the things men have dreamed and thought and written about him. A dream, if it is no more than that, of such great age and beauty as this of the unicorn, is far more worthy of consideration than the question whether we shall have one species more or less in the earth's fauna. How's everybody today? There's a part where he okay. In the 33rd and final fragment of the Indica Satissus asserts roundly or perhaps it is Photius who does it for him, that his book is all perfectly true, and that he has set down nothing which has not either seen himself or else heard from the mouths of credible witnesses. Indeed, says he, many more wonderful things than he has put into his book have been left out simply because he does not wish to be thought a liar. This was a physician, Ctesias, in the year 416 BC in Persia. We do well to keep this assurance in mind when we come to consider his 25th fragment, the earliest and one of the most important of European documents relating to the unicorn. This is quoted. There are in India certain wild asses which are as large as horses and larger. Their bodies are white, their heads dark red, and their eyes dark blue. They have a horn on the forehead which is about 1.5 feet in length. The dust filed from this horn is administered in a potion as a protection against deadly drugs. The base of this horn, for some 2 hands' breadth above the brow, so it'd be like this far, but on a giant horse. Hi, Genevieve! Whee! The base of this horn, for some 2 hands' breadth above the brow, is pure white, and the upper part is sharp and of a vivid crimson, and the remainder or middle portion is black. So the unicorn's horn is white at the base, its middle part is black, and the very sharp tip is dark red, crimson. Those who drink out of these horns made into drinking vessels are not subject, they say, to convulsions or to the holy disease, which is epilepsy. Indeed, they are immune even to poisons if either before or after swallowing such they drink wine, water, or anything else from these beakers. So they would make goblets out of the unicorn horns, and it would protect you from toxic poisons or drugs or disease. It looked like it was protected you from epilepsy and convulsions and poison. Other asses, both the tame and the wild, and in fact all animals with solid hooves, are without the ankle bone and have no gall in the liver. I think that's gallbladder, but these have both the ankle and the gall. So it's saying that normal donkeys and horses don't have an ankle bone and they don't have a gallbladder, but unicorns anatomically have an ankle bone, like their hoof is articulated, and they have a gallbladder. A unicorn does. This ankle bone, the most beautiful I've ever seen, is like that of an ox in general appearance and in size. But it is as heavy as lead, and its color is that of cinnabar through and through. The animal is exceedingly swift and powerful, so that no creature, neither the horse nor any other, can overtake it. Hi that way! Yeah, so cool. This is funny. The author then goes to say, after this quotation, whatever else we may think of this passage, we cannot call it a baseless fabrication. We can believe that Ctesias added to it nothing whatever out of his own fancy, but recorded what he had heard from men who, in their turn, spoke quite honestly and even accurately of what they had seen and heard. Considered from the zoologist's point of view, the fault of the passage is that the facts it contains are strangely combined, but for our present purposes, this is just its charm and value. Evidently, Ctesias is describing at least 2 different animals at once, and it is as though a child, having read descriptions of the lion and the camel, should combine them into a tertium quid, vaguely like both but exactly similar to neither. I disagree with that. I think that the author Setius went way out of his way to say that this is exactly what we are describing. I don't think he was vague at all or described two different animals. I think that the author of this book is like going out of their way to discount the actual anatomical description that they just provided. A main ingredient of this compound beast is almost certainly the Indian rhinoceros. The evidence for this lies in what is said of the horn's alexipharmic virtue, and that those who drink from beakers made of it are free from certain diseases and from poisons. This belief about rhinoceros horn, still widely current in the Orient, was already old, apparently in the time of Setius, and underneath it lies a welter of symbolism and superstition exceedingly difficult to comprehend. Without attempting to explain it at present, we may accept it as an important datum of our study. So then again, that author just like went around about way of discounting and saying, oh, they're probably just talking about a rhinoceros horn. Thinking then of the rhinoceros horn, what explanation can be made of the remark about its colors, white and black and red? The actual horns of the rhinoceros vary somewhat widely in hue, and the color of a carved specimen is rarely a strange dull red in the thinner parts, deepening towards reddish black where it is thick. Support for one of these suggestions is given by Manuel Philes, a Greek poet who, although he lived in the 13th century, is a mere echo of the ancients. Seeing the hands of an Indian king a drinking vessel adorned with 3 bands of color, white and black and red, Philes asks what this cup is made of, and is told that it is the horn of the Ovapos, or wild ass. The ultimate source of this passage is Setius himself, so that the story in Philes amounts not to a discovery, but to an interpretation, yet considered as such, it is both shrewd and plausible. The rhinoceros cups of India may well have been painted with these 3 colors for symbolic or magical reasons now lost, and the mistaking of such an artificial for a natural coloring would have been only one of several such confusions that we shall meet in unicorn lore. The splash of vivid dye at the end of the horn holds special attention. It recalls a passage in the 21st fragment of Setius, in which we are told that near the sources of Hipparchus there is found a certain flower used for dyeing purposes and not inferior to the Greek purple, giving in fact a far more vivid hue even than that. In the same district there is an animal about as large as a beetle with very long legs and as red as cinnabar, which the Indians grind into a powder and so use for dyeing the robes and tunics to which they wish to give a purple color. Their dye stuffs are better than those of the Persians. All right, they're talking about the wild ass. It may be objected that even in the 4th century before Christ, no intelligent man could have assumed the actual existence of a beast such as this on no better evidence than that of rude representation. Against this objection, one may bring forward the exactly similar assumption made by a scientifically trained traveler of the 19th century who was converted to belief in the existence of unicorns by the discovery of a primitive picture of what he took for one in a South African cave. But this far, we have ignored the fact that Cetius calls his unicorns wild asses, and even with such an absurd name as that of the hippopotamus, which means river horse, before us it seems unlikely that either he or his informants could have ever seen anything asinine in the rhinoceros. The wild ass, a native of Persia as well as of India, should have been familiar to Cetius by personal observation. They say it could be a wild antelope. This is a picture of a unicorn. We have never seen an animal with a solid hoof and with two horns, and there are only a few that have a solid hoof and one horn, as the Indian ass and the oryx. Of all animals with a solid hoof, the Indian ass alone has a talus. A talus is an ankle bone. Aristotle then not only believed in the existence of so that was a quote from Aristotle. Aristotle not only believed in the existence of a one-horned Indian ass, but he also thought that the oryx had only one horn and a solid hoof. He was a man whose very errors were to be far more fruitful than most men's correct opinions. Already there are two different species of unicorns for the echoers of authority to describe. The unicorn has no place in the classic literature of Greece and Rome, yet during the 500 years between Aristotle and Ælian, its legend somehow made progress. Aristotle knew of only 2 unicorns, but Ælian and Pliny between them muster 7. The rhinoceros, the Indian ass, the oryx, the Indian ox, the Indian horse, the bison, and the unicorn proper, and par excellence. Ælian's acquaintance with 2 or 3 of these, moreover, is far more extended than that shown by Aristotle or even by Cetius, but there is no way of discovering how his increments of knowledge came to him. His book about animals, composed in a florid Greek, although he was a Roman and spent his life in Italy, exerted an influence upon later writers on zoology inferior only to that of Aristotle and of Pliny. Every phrase of his 3 considerable passages about the unicorn was conned and reiterated many times during the following 1,500 years, and for this reason they deserve careful attention. In the first of these passages, Ælian adds nothing to the statement of Cetius. In the second, he says, I have found that the wild asses as large as horses are to be seen in India. The body of this animal is white, except on the head, which is red, while the eyes are azure, which is blue. It has a horn on the brow, about 1 cubit and a half in length. A cubit is what they use to measure the pyramids. It has a horn on the brow, about 1 cubit and a half in length, which is white at the base, crimson at the top, and black between. These variegated horns, I learn, are used as drinking cups by the Indians, although not, to be sure, by all of the people. Only the great men use them, after having them ringed about with hoops of gold, exactly as they would put bracelets on some beautiful statue. And it is said that Whosoever drinks from this kind of horn is safe from all incurable diseases, such as convulsions and the so-called holy disease, and that he cannot be killed by poison. In the rest of the chapter, Elian speaks of the black ankle bone, of the onager's way of fighting with the horn and teeth and heels, and of its bitter flesh. Elian adds that the beakers are used only by the great men of India and that they are adorned with gold rings. He diverges from Setius in saying that the horn is about 1.5 cubits in length instead of only 1 cubit, and also in asserting that the astrangulus, or ankle bone, is black. Setius, who affirms that he has seen this ankle bone, declares that it is red, like cinnabar. Shall we infer that the Elian had some source of information about unicorns other than the book of the court physician? He might well have increased the length of the horn without authority, as several others were to do after him. But his remark about the gold rings and about the use of cups by great men alone is hardly of the sort that even a naturally inaccurate man like Elian evolves from his own mind. Oh, interesting. His disagreement with Setius about the color of the ankle bone raises a curious problem. Setius gives us the impression that this bone was important by saying in the first place, quite wrongly, that among solid-hoofed animals only the wild ass has it, and secondly that the unicorned onager is hunted in India for the horn and ankle bone only. What could have given it this importance? Possibly the use of it as a charm or talisman, or we know that every part of the body of a rhinoceros was thought to have magical virtues, and it may be that the specimen seen by Setius had been painted or dyed so as to make it both an ornament and an amulet. The common use of these ankle bones in the ancient world, however, was for the making of dice, as one is reminded by the Latin word talus, which means both an astragalus and a die. There is a bare possibility that Elian was thinking of the black dice of Italy. So they made like rolling dice out of the ankle bones of unicorns. The third passage by Elian about the unicorn is the most important. They say, he writes, that there are mountains in the interior regions of India which are inaccessible to men and therefore full of wild beasts. Among these is the unicorn, which they call the Cardazon. This animal is as large as a full-grown horse, and it has a mane, tawny hair, feet like those of an elephant, and the tail of a goat. It is exceedingly swift of foot. Between its brow there stands a single black horn, not smooth, but with certain natural rings, and tapering to a very sharp point. Of all animals, this one has the most dissonant voice. With beasts of other species that approach it, the Cardazon is gentle, but it fights with those of its own kind. And not only do the males fight naturally among themselves, but they contend even against the females, and push to the contest to the death. The animal has great strength of body, and it is armed besides with unconquerable horn. It seeks out the most deserted places and wanders there alone. In the season of rut, it grows gentle towards the chosen female, and they pasture side by side. But when this time is over, he becomes wild again and wanders alone. They say that the young ones are sometimes taken to the king to be exhibited in contests on days of festival, but because of their strength, no one remembers the capture of a single specimen of mature age. Interesting. The name Cardazon is apparently connected with the Sanskrit Cardazon, which means Lord of the Desert. Among the several passages in which the elder Pliny mentions unicorned animals, the only one of present importance is that in which he says, "The Orcesian Indians hunt an exceedingly wild beast called the monoceros, which has a stag's head, elephant's feet, and a boar's tail, the rest of its body being like that of a horse. It makes a deep lowing noise, and one black horn, 2 cubits long, projects from the middle of its forehead. This animal, they say, cannot be taken alive." Okay, this is from Solinus, Julius Solinus. "But the cruelest is the unicorn, a monster that belloweth horrible, bodied like a horse, footed like an elephant, tailed like a swine, and headed like a stag. His horn sticketh out of the midst of his forehead, of a wonderful brightness, about 4 foot long, so sharp that whatsoever he pusheth at, he striketh it through easily. He is never caught alive, killed he may be, but taken he cannot be." They say that it's also mentioned as a monstrous beast in the Bible. Only 2 further references to the unicorn in ancient literature are worthy of attention. In his long poem on the art of hunting, Oppian speaks of certain Aeonian or Boeotian oxen as having solid hooves and one heavy horn protruding from the middle of the brow. Of these we can only say that they really did inhabit Boeotia in his time. It is strange that we hear nothing of them from Aristotle or Pausanias or even Plutarch, who would scarcely have left such a remarkable dozens of his district unheralded. We suspect that Oppian erred about the habitat and even the species of these bulls when we read that their horns were colored white and black and red, for we seem to remember having heard of this coloration elsewhere. Julius Caesar tells us that in his time there was to be found in the Hercynian forests, where wonders have always abounded, a huge beast with the form of a stag, from the middle of whose brow and between the ears there stood forth one horn, longer and straighter than the horns known to the Romans. What's up, guys? Oh, thank you. Thanks, Genevieve. Oh, you're so cool. Hi, Bear. Hi, that way. Hi, T. I won't read much more, but let me see. There was one. Holy Hunt. Okay, I'm going to talk about where the virgins. because only the virgins could capture the unicorn. Rudolf von Ems makes a clear a statement as anyone of the belief that the ruse of the hunters can succeed only when the girl chosen for the decoy is really a virgin. If she is not, the unicorn shows great anger and runs her through with his horn to punish her deceit. A similar power of distinguishing at sight between the true and the pretended virgin is attributed in folklore to several other animals, such as the stag, an elephant, and lion. And among the many virginity tests, all supposed to be unerring, one of the simplest was that of setting the woman in the way of one of these beasts. If she was killed, then she deserved her death. If she lived, overcoming the animal's natural ferocity, it could be only through chastity's magic power. Such ideas, so pervasive and enduring as to have had echoes even in Milton's Comus, were widely current during these centuries when the virgin capture story was growing, and it would have been strange if they had not found expression there. But one cannot believe that they had a shaping, not to say an originating influence upon that story. Suggestions of the virginity test are rare in unicorn literature, and they are late. Any argument based upon them would be strongly countered by the frequently seductive contact of the woman herself. In the Syriac bestiary, as we have seen, the decoy is so obviously not a virgin that no unicorn with the slightest discernment in such matters should have been deceived by her. And we learn also from a Greek grammarian of the 12th century that the animal can be taken as well by a young man dressed in a maiden's garments as by the maiden herself. The feminine garments of youth, we are told, must be heavily perfumed, and this reminds one that in fully half of the virgin captured narratives in which any explanation is vouchsafed of virgin powers of fascination, she is said to attract her victim by what may be called the odor of chastity, a scent which could be purchased, apparently, like feminine beauty of our own time, of any good chemist. The scent of chastity. This idea appears subordinately in the elaborate explanation already cited from Alenus de Insulis. John of San Gemignano says that the unicorn, while stepping along through the forest, smells the odor of a virgin. Philippe de Ton remarks that the animal is attracted by the odor of the maiden's breast. Richard de Fourneval makes his unicorn aware of the maiden, au flair. The list is long, extending from Albertus Magnus, who ascribes the whole phenomenon to the unicorn's keen sense of smell. And here again, one is reminded of the rhinoceros to a learned pharmacist of the 7th century, Lorenz Catalion. This is a picture of the holy hunt. And here's the unicorn gourding the decoy virgin. I guess she's not really a virgin because he's attacking her. This is that special alchemical symbol. There's a collar and the gate, and then a tree. There's a golden chain from the collar. The chain's coming from the horn, and it's winding up the tree. It kind of looks like a palm tree. The maiden can attract her prey only by the odor which is peculiar to virgins. Lawrence Cotillion, however, had not the strange medieval belief, a belief which endures today in some districts, in the attractive and holding power of the eye. The Abbess Hildegard of Bingen felt quite at home in the mysteries such as this, and her explanation is therefore more confident than most. She believes that several virgins wandering together in a wood are much more attractive to unicorns than a single virgin can be. Considering that almost all other authorities say that the virgin must be left alone, some even asserting that she must be naked and bound to a tree, it is permissible to suggest that the abbess may have been led to take this view by her responsibilities as head of a house full of nuns. Hildegard makes it clear that these virgins should be no mere rustics, but well born, and neither too old nor too young. When the unicorn sees a bevy of such damsels wandering about, gathering flowers, or engaged in some other such maidenly pursuit, he stops at once in his tracks and eyes them. They eye him. Then he advances very slowly, crouches on his hind legs, and looks at them for a long time from a distance. He is surprised at the fact that although they have in general the appearance of human beings, yet they have no beards. He loves them because he sees, forsooth, that they are gentle and kind, and while he is gazing at them, all his wild and innocent heart drawn forth in adoration, the hunters steal up behind and slay him and cut off his horn. Hildegard's naive remark that the unicorn loves the maidens because they are gentle and kind, so charmingly oblivious of the purpose of those maidens, recalls the fact that not once in all the hundreds of references to the virgin capture story is there dropped the slightest hint that this device of venery is somewhat lacking in sportsmanship. The girl always plays her detestable role, drawing the unicorn to his death by acting upon his highest nature without the slightest compunction. And then, in the faces of the virgins that were painted in this tableau during the Middle Ages, there is always an expression of profound serenity. One feels that some of the supernal charm of chastity might be dispensed with if we could have a little more of the sense of fair play in its place. It's interesting that the female virgins draw the unicorn to its death, and it's kind of like how sirens draw semen to their death. If, the unicorn represents the male phallus. When once the story of the Holy Hunt had attained such complexity as this, it was likely to occur anywhere in the vast literature written in praise of the Virgin and of chastity in general. We find it, for example, in a thoroughly detestable book celebrating virginity written by one Henrik Kornmann early in the 17th century. Here the huntsmen who slay the unicorn are called Jews, and the palace of the king, to which the animal is taken after its death, is identified with heaven, where ante conspectum paterni voltis et civivum suppornum. It is greeted with appropriate ceremonies like a returning Roman general. The story was never questioned or criticized in any way, for it had been sanctified, and any suggestion that the Virgin acted deceitfully in ensnaring her own son would perhaps have been regarded as impious. How engaging is the picture of the angel Gabriel driving the beast into her embraces, with God looking on benignly over the garden wall. And then how ingenious when the creature has been soothed to rest and slaughtered, to blame its death, which all three of the holy persons concerned had foreseen and planned and brought upon the Jews. The idea suggested by Kornmann that the Son of God, transformed into a unicorn, is harried and hunted through the forests of this world in order to be brought back as a, quote, spectacle for the citizens of heaven, a faint memory of the Roman circus, is not so much quaint as it is degraded and brutal. Furthermore, the story as told by Kornmann and many others is soaked in a peculiarly foul praise of sexual asceticism, which is more base to all clear and clean thinking than honest pornography. The virgin capture story is not, for all its interest, a pleasing one, and its later ramifications it becomes positively painful. When he strayed into his physiologos, the unicorn entered a region not worthy of him. A creature imagined nobly as terrible, solitary, with the beauty of power, was transformed under Christian influence into a little goat-like animal, eating out of the hand, going to sleep in maidens' laps, and serving as a symbol of virginity. Nietzsche would not have asked for a more brilliant illustration of a slave morality. Hi from Ireland! No rain. It is sunny. Alright, I'm going to stop there. I have to go into the library. And I'm going to return this book. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed it. Love you all.